Hello and welcome back to Glenn's Small Engine. This video we're going to be fixing a trimmer that's set up for about 5 years. I'm sure that the fuel system is in terrible condition. It will not start on its own. I've got fire, I've got compression. The engine spins over freely. It's tight where you want it to be tight. It's got compression. We'd like to have a little resistance there because if it was real easy to pull over, then we know we could have a serious mechanical problem. It will start on a prime. If I prime this carburetor with a little bit of 2-cycle fuel, it will start and burn that fuel. I don't like to use starting fluid on these because there's not enough lubrication in the starting fluid for a 2-cycle engine. So what I do is I just take a cap, about a half a cap full of 2-cycle fuel. Carburetor, open the throttle, let it go down to the engine, and we're going to pull it a few times to see what it'll do. Crank and run, burn that prime up, and then it'll die. It won't pull fuel on its own. So we're going to pull this carburetor off, go through the carburetor, check the fuel line, the fuel filter, the primer. We're going to check all that. This fuel looks kind of dark. It smells rough and it looks dark. I won't be reusing this fuel. There's the carburetor right there. I'm going to wash this carburetor up before I take it apart because I just don't want to contaminate it internally any worse than it already is. Diesel fuel or naphtha or whatever you like to use for parts cleaner. Just don't want anything real strong like B12. Also, this gives us a chance to look down through the intake at the cylinder. Looks brand new. This steel pre-molded green fuel line is really durable. It's dirty, but the fuel line still looks brand new other than it's just dirty. I want to be careful not to get anything down the intake when we got the carburetor off. Also, I want to look at this spark plug. Even though it was firing good, we just want to take a look at it. It's a little bit dirty, but it doesn't look like it's been used that much, so there's no use replacing it. Alright, we got our carburetor nice and clean. This carburetor has two parts to it. It's got the fuel pump side, which has got one screw in it. It's got the meter inside, which has got 4 screws in it. And we've also got our primer assembly on the meter inside on this particular carburetor. So we'll start by removing our fuel pump side. There's our fuel pump diaphragm. Got a little screen right here. Okay, now we'll take our meter inside off. Our meter inside has 4 screws. These little diaphragms in these carburetors, they don't last forever. Fuel attacks them, they dry rot. If they set up dry, they can get dry rotted. They set it with fuel in it, fuel attacks them, so they're just not going to last forever. Here's our primer cover, our primer block. Got a couple little check valves in it for the primer to operate. Here's our metering diaphragm, and the metering diaphragm looks really bad. You can see where it's gotten so dry, and also it's ripped. It's actually ripped a little bit right there. It's supposed to be real soft. It's not soft, it's hard, and it just comes apart. Just tears apart real easy. Remove that with a little razor blade here. Try to take it off, but I want to be gentle not to hurt the aluminum of the carburetor. But that diaphragm's pretty bad right there. I'll go ahead and take our metering lever and needle out right here. This little screen down in here, I'm going to pop it out using a razor blade. It's a little screen. It's just a little screen there that goes inside this hole just to help filter the really small stuff that gets by the fuel filter. I'm going to very gently with light air pressure blow this out. We don't want to blow it too hard though. Once again, this is the fuel pump side of the carburetor that pumps the fuel. This is the meter inside of the carburetor. The meter needle goes there, lever and spring. You got your low speed jet, your high speed jet, your low and high speed adjustments. Your main fuel supply goes in right here by the fuel pump. This is the primer block. It's got two check valves in the primer block. This line goes back to the tank. It's the fuel return line that when you work your primer, it pushes fuel back to the tank that causes the main fuel line to draw fuel up from the tank. I've got a little stand here I like to use when I'm working on these little carburetors. It just picks it up off my towel here where I can see it. I'm going to use some seafoam here to soak these jets in this carburetor. I'm just going to pour a little bit on the top of the carburetor and just let it set. I'm going to pour a little bit of seafoam on this primer block on the check valves and kind of let that soak for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and blow it off. Do not use anything strong, any strong solvent on this carburetor like B12 or other strong solvents. It will ruin this carburetor. Okay, our carburetor kit we're going to be using is a RB100. It's the part number for this particular carburetor. May be different for yours. The primer part number is 57003. It could be different for yours. This is a Zama carburetor. Alright, we kind of blowed the seafoam off the carburetor, so we're ready to put it back together. You can go to Zama's website and look up the carburetor kit. This particular carburetor, the model number, it's right down in there. It's C1Q, and it's located right down in that little hole. And then the spec number is S97. And you can go to Zama's website and look up the carburetor kit part number. So we're going to go ahead and start putting it back together. The first thing we're going to do is put in this little screen right here. Just push it down in there and try to square it up. A little WD-40 on that carburetor right there just to help this diaphragm, this new diaphragm, set down on there. Put our new gasket on there. Cover on it. Our carburetor kit came with these Welch plugs. We're not going to take them out. There's no need to it on this carburetor. We got the needle set in. We got the spring there. Now we'll set the lever down on top of it. The lever should come up to just square with the top of the carburetor there. You don't need this tool to check that with. Anything with a straight edge, you can check it on this carburetor. Not all carburetors set that way. but this one does. When I slide this across there, it doesn't open it, but it just makes it to the top of it. Alright, now we're ready for our metering gasket, our metering diaphragm. You can see how soft this diaphragm is compared to that other one. Then our primer block, our new primer, and the little cover for it. I like to pull all these screws down together. Don't pull one side down faster than the other ones. Run them all down at about the same. Be sure and get them all tight. Carburetor is just about ready. I like to test my carburetor on the workbench before I put it back on. Fuel line, I hook it to the main fuel line. Remember, the one down here by your fuel pump is your main fuel line. This is your primer return line. So if everything's working okay, when I push this primer, it should suck fuel up into the carburetor. See, there it is. So that tells me that the primer check valves and the carburetor is working so far. If I had a problem here, I wouldn't even put it on. I'd take it back apart. But I already put a new fuel filter in it. Our throttle control up here. We got our throttle hooked up around here on this side. We got our fuel lines hooked up. A 5/16 fits them just fine. Alright, we'll add some fresh fuel here. This fuel's my fuel. I know that it's good. Alright, we'll hit the primer a few times. Choke it. It starts right up and runs like a brand new one. I hope this video saves you some money. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more repair videos. Like a brand new one. Hello and welcome